Hello, friends and haters. This is Lenny of Lenny Does Rants. www.lennydoesrants.com. Sports, politics, religion, engineering, technology, and science. But I feel free to rant about anything I damn well please. Welcome to another segment.
We've got a problem in the United States with Christianity. We're losing people every year and have been for the past 4 decades, maybe 5. Especially young people. They're kind of turned off by it. We need to do something about that. We have to get rid of some of the old stodgy ways and do something new. So I'm going to present something today that takes the New Testament of the Bible and does it in a comedy. A comedy? Oh my God, you can't do that. You'll burn in hell. No, I'm going to save Christianity, not lose it. Anyway, I wrote this about 7 years ago. And let me take a moment to apologize to my Jewish relatives and my Jewish friends. I'm going to be an Italian American playing the part of a Jew here. I hope you'll bear with me. Anyway, here we go. My name is Morty, and 2,000 years ago, it seemed like everybody I knew was Jewish. Not an Episcopalian or a Presbyterian to be found. Anyway, at the time, I was the marketing director for this odd fellow, John the Baptist. Now, while I was with him, John baptized people every day. At one point, after a baptism, a young man came up to me and he said he had a message he wanted to get out. Then out of the blue, the guy says to me, "You will be my marketing director." Just like that. He told me his name was Jesus. Jesus the Christ. I smiled at him and I replied, "Mr. Christ, I can call you Jesus, right? So look, G, I already have a gig with that guy over there, John the Baptist. You know him?" But I'm telling you, this guy was undeterred. And he turned to me and he said, "Morty," he knew my name somehow, "do not be concerned. John is my cousin." And he proceeded to tell me about his message. Well, the message was rather simple and straightforward, and I knew I could market that. So I told the young man, "Okay, I'll work for you even for free. But I get all the merchandising rights. The Team Jesus t-shirts, the wine mugs, the tunics, whatever." He agreed, and I took the job. Well, we traveled from town to town, and I posted signs that read, "Jesus speaking at noon, BYOW. Bring your own wine, your own water, whatever." But for some reason, the crowds were small. I looked into it, and I found out that all the time while Jesus was in these towns, he was preaching in the temples and in the synagogues. And he was arguing with the priests and the elders. When I heard this, of course, I was angry. "Jesus Christ, what are you doing? You can't argue and embarrass these powerful men in their own temples. They'll get you," I said to him. But Jesus turned to me and he calmly said, "Morty, do not be concerned." In the next town, however, I realized he had listened to me and he was finally kicking butt. Jesus started casting out demons. We had people writhing and jiggling and jumping up and down. Voices were coming out of them. Demons were everywhere. I mean, you can't script this stuff. Things were great. The crowds were getting bigger. Sales went up so much, I had to tell the wife to get the factory in Bethlehem cranking out more Team Jesus t-shirts. Well, believe it or not, in the next town, things got even better. The crowds were bigger. Jesus was preaching the message all day long. Then one time, after a full day of preaching, the crowds got tired and hungry, but there wasn't much food around. Now, when you have a bunch of tired and hungry Jews, you better do something in a hurry. My Jesus took some breadcrumbs and some sardines and did a little something, and he fed thousands. The crowds were pleased, so was I, and the merchandise sales went up even more. When we moved on to the next town, my Jesus really had some tricks up his tunic. He started healing the sick. The blind could see, the deaf could hear, the unclean were cleansed, the lepers were leprosy free. I mean, my Jesus was really kicking it. With this news, I told the wife to get another factory going in Jerusalem. Word got out that if you're on Team Jesus, there's free food and free health care. Now, who wouldn't want to be a member of that club? Team Jesus t-shirts were selling like crazy, and so were the wine mugs. And then my Jesus did the incredible. He raised the guy from the dead. I mean, stone cold dead. Now I had an honest-to-God Jewish superhero on my hands. You talk about t-shirt sales. I could barely keep up. This was the holy grail of marketing. Well, things were going great, and I started thinking about retirement. Maybe my wife Ada and I would get a little place overlooking the Jordan. We'd buy a little boat, go out on the water. Of course, we'd invite Jesus over. The guy really has a thing for water. Everything was going great until it wasn't. So one day on my stone tablet, I get a tweet from a Roman soldier friend of mine. They were going to take Jesus, beat him up, and kill him. I started running around looking for Jesus. Jesus the Christ, where are you? I have some very bad news. They're going to grab you, beat you up, and kill you. But what does Jesus do? He turns to me calmly and says, Morty, do not be concerned. But they want to kill you, I said. Then Jesus says, Morty, the sacrifice, it is written. It is written. It is written. It is written. What is written? I yell. That you have to die? I mean, I was mortified, but there was no convincing this guy. And at this point, I realized he had some kind of God complex or something. Well, we moved on to the next town, and just as expected, it happened. They grabbed my Jesus. Oh, this was terrible. I had to tell the wife to shut down the factory in Jerusalem, lay everybody off, give them a month's severance. Well, maybe make it 2 weeks. That's sufficient, right? This was so bad. What was I going to do? I had a thought. I could try to get the followers together and go back and grab Jesus. But wait, we were talking lepers, prostitutes, tax collectors, guys from the dead. We're not exactly talking special forces here, you know. It'd never work. Now, I couldn't go back and work for that guy, the Baptist. I heard he was crazier than ever. And I'd also heard he'd lost his head over things. There could have been this new gig with this Caesar fella, something about salad dressing. But what is salad anyway? And what do I know about haberdashery? This was terrible. Then it came to me. This was a godsend. What a great marketing situation. Fantastic. Okay, they captured Jesus and they beat him up. What Jewish man hasn't had to suffer a little, right? Crucify him. Yeah, that would hurt. But when they saw what he was up to, it'd be too late. I had realized I had figured out Jesus' plan. After all, this was the Jewish superhero. So he was probably just trying to suck them in, right? Waiting for them to get gathered tightly around the cross, all the Roman soldiers. And then, just like what happened with the burning bush, he'd snap his finger and the soldiers would go up in flames. Crispy critters. Jesus would get down from the cross. The crowd would go wild. And I'd be selling Team Jesus t-shirts for the next 10,000 years. But sadly, that wasn't what happened. Jesus, my superhero, he died on the cross. I was so distraught, so overcome with sadness, so much inventory. Well, soon after he died, people started talking about the sacrifice. And I started thinking about the message Jesus had wanted me to market for him. Eventually, I understood. Of course, it was the sacrifice. It was what was written. Yes, he had died, and that was a sacrifice. But Jesus was flesh and blood, just like any human. And all humans have to die sometime. And yes, to be crucified was a sacrifice, right? But thousands of Jews had been crucified on crosses just like his, along with those criminals who had been crucified next to him. So that couldn't be the sacrifice. The sacrifice was somehow linked to the message, his message. And it came from the way he lived as well as the way he died. I knew the message Jesus gave in life was love. Love for God, love for everyone, love for the unlovable, maybe even love for the murderers. In death, Jesus had done the same thing he had done in life. He had totally loved everyone. Here was this guy that was perfect. He had done nothing wrong. He was totally innocent. He was completely in the right, and his persecutors were completely in the wrong. He would have been totally justified in any action against them. He had the power in his little finger to destroy all the armies of the world, and he had the justification to do so. But he didn't. Even in his death, he did nothing but love those who acted against him, his own murderers. He didn't harm a hair on their head, and he also stopped his followers from harming them. Even while he was being killed, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Unbelievable. Well, time passed, and in the end, things worked out quite well for the wife and me. After he died, he rose from the dead, and he walked the earth. And because of that, I made a bundle. I sold Team Jesus t-shirts, wine glasses, and tunics with an impression of his face. I did very well for myself, I don't mind saying. And the wife and I eventually did get a place on the Jordan. And we did go out in that little boat. And we thought about our friend Jesus often. And I came to realize that all that had happened was exactly the way Jesus wanted it to be. I know that is true because here I am today, 2,000 years later, still a marketing director for Jesus, still preaching his simple, beautiful message. Love your God and love one another as you love yourself. So the question really isn't, as I've often heard, what would Jesus do? Because we know what Jesus did in his life and even in his death. The question is, what will we do with our power, our treasures, our health, our intelligence, our influence, our education, our time, our talent? What sacrifices are we willing to make? Just love your God and love one another is the simplest message of all. And any marketing director would go crazy over the simplicity and beauty of that message. But maybe, just maybe, it's the hardest thing Jesus could have ever asked of us humans. Think about it. This is Lenny of Lenny Does Rants. I'm out.